Namaste and welcome to Phaedra Darwish. Thank you so much, Phaedra, for coming and joining us in this conversation.
Thank you. Namaste. Thank you for taking the time to meet with me. And it's really, really nice to get to know you even virtually and hopefully soon in person.
Absolutely. I was seeing a couple of videos of yours, and it's very similar to some of our film music and film dance. So, do you see what is the connection and resemblance that you see to Indian music and dance and to the belly dancing that you do so beautifully, Petra?
Oh, thank you, first of all, for saying that. I think it's important to study as closely, even though we are in the United States, to study as closely to the culture as possible. So if you do like my dancing, I would say thank you to my teachers first and foremost. I've had teachers from all over the world, and I appreciate the well-rounded education I've been given. Um, so I do think that a lot of times you will see the center of movement. Say if you are looking at a Bollywood film and you are looking at a performance of Rat Sharki, which is the way we say belly dance in Arabic. Rats means dance and Sharki means the East. So Eastern dance, but we really mean belly dancing. And what I would say about that is a lot of times, of course, we have the bright colors in the costuming. And then we also have a lot of sometimes the center of movement can be very similar to what you might see in a Bollywood style choreography, wherein maybe the hips and the chest are used in isolation, like they have isolated movements that are very specific and very muscularly based, using the muscles, but also there's a softness there too. There's a softness between the articulations. And what I'm going to be doing, though, I would say there will be a little bit of the Rat Sharki within the Surabi ensemble show that you will see. I will say that the piece that I've choreographed for the dancers to come together and do is actually a folk dance, though. We're going to be more in the specifically Arabic only, dance number that I have prepared for the tour. We are going to be exploring Dabke dance. And Dabke is different. It's from the Arab world. But a lot of countries, it's a dance that involves stomping of the legs. That's what dabke means in Arabic, literally to stomp. So it involves a lot of footwork, and it travels in a counterclockwise circle, and people are holding hands. So it's very much a folk dance, and you will see that again with sort of the connections that Surabi wants to, bring out within the music and the performance. You will probably notice that a lot of the countries that you know all have a dance where people are traveling in a circle and holding hands or doing something rhythmic with their feet. And so this is another thing we can think about the elements, just as we were talking about the elements of the focus of the body when we have belly dance versus Bollywood. Yeah. And in the same way, when you look at something like a dabke dance, which again, it travels in a circle and people are holding hands and they're doing rhythmic things with their feet. Again, we have things like kathak. We have, things different. Everybody sort of has their style of dance, which explores those elements. We just might do it in a slightly different way or explore different rhythms that come from different nations, things like that. But you can see, again, there's a unifying element there of the focus. In this case, it will be the feet and the circular movement and the connection between people that comes within folk dance. The movements aren't made of dabke. They can be very difficult and they can be very impressive, but at its core, I would say, what are the most basic steps that most people will know that do this at weddings and parties and all group gatherings? They're simple. As folk dance, it's simple. It's meant to be, captured and enjoyed by many people. So I hope that We can show community with this dance. We can involve the audience, hopefully, with this dance. And I think
Hmm.
that when we take that, maybe break the fourth wall, as they might say in
Hmm.
theater, when we break the fourth wall and we come out and show this dance and share this dance with the audience, that will be another way to physically connect with each other. Yeah.
Love. Well, what do you think about this element of sensuality, which is in most classical dances? It's almost disappeared. We used to have the Devadasi dance tradition where we had women dancing in temples as an offering to the deity. So
Yes.
the dance of that time was not there were no inhibitions, and but the as over time, the classical forms have almost eliminated this sensual part of dance, where the body is not um, used to represent certain elements which are sensuous. So, what
I,
are your thoughts on that?
I think that there's a lot of historical ramifications that end up socially affecting dance. What I understand from David Dasi, and of course you can speak to this probably in greater detail than I, is that they used to be very revered and respected and held in the highest regard as an art. And socially speaking, through the ages, their place in society or what they're associated with by people has changed. And we have the same struggle within the art of Raqs Sharki, right? In different contexts, it can be seen different ways. When you might put Raqs Sharki on a stage, it almost westernizes it in a
Mm,
way. There's then a separation between the audience and the dancer. And it depends on what sort of perception you're coming from. Some people think of that as bringing the art up higher and in a more legitimate space then. However, you're taking it away from its natural context, right? And the natural context historically was to be closer to your audience in a Sharki setting,
mhm,
right? And historically in settings where it was just for women, and we had sort of historically two different, very different influences that created what we see as belly dance today. Um,
mhm,
we have performing in public in front of a mixed audience, and then we had the history of Sharki as a ballady form, which would be done by women in a private party setting, right? Things like this. So, as far as your question, I was getting a little bit off center from your question, but that's to give it a little bit of context there. Yeah. And so, I do think that there are sensual elements to the dance because it is based in the hip region that cannot be denied, right?
mhm,
But I think that in a, it really matters. It's a very individual dance. Although
mhm,
that Sharki, again, as it has been more and more westernized, you see troops of dancers doing the same choreography or meant for a group, but really at its core, that Sharki is a very individual dance, and it's a very individual expression of that person and their self. And I do think that it has a lot to do with the underlying, I guess, in not, I wouldn't even say intent, but what the dancer, her or himself, exudes, right? I
mhm,
like to think that when I am dancing with Sharki, there's more vibration of joy than
mhm,
sexuality. And it's not to say that we should deny this part, the sensuality, you should say, of the dance. But I do think that what I like, how I feel about Raqs Sharki is it's something to be shared. Although that the dance is very individual, but it's very much a dance that is put in context where you want everyone to join, or you want everyone in the room to feel this energy. And it's not
mhm,
just about you, it's about your connection with the audience. So I do think my focus, more than a sensuality vibe, you could say,
Mm.
is a joy and a
Mm.
connection. And this is what I want people to see, hopefully, and feel when I am dancing this style. Yes, this
Yeah.
Rashaki style. And so I hope that they see the joy and the art. Of course, we want to, no matter where we are, it is an art. In what context we're in, it is an art. But I hope that there's a connection for everyone that I am dancing with. I even think of it as not about me, it's about us. And I feel like Surabi Ensemble kind of also feels this vibe, this
Mm.
togetherness vibe, which we hope that translates to a connection with the audience and to a broader connection between cultures. And
How
just
lovely.
as your questions are sort of, we're connecting the history maybe of David and the social context there, and Bollywood with Rat Sharki. And as you can see, it's very much although the borders of the world are drawn perhaps over history and over time, really people have been connecting across those borders for centuries, so that we all carry elements of each other's sort of development in the dance.
Thank you so much. And in India, the deity for dance, as you might know, Petra, is Shiva. It's a male, and Natraja actually in the form of Natraja. So, what role does gender play in dance? And there are very few male dancers now in the classical forms, but the original dancer was Shiva. So, what difference does gender make in dance, and how does the dance? One is a complementary where you have the women and the men dancing together, each playing a role. But what if you choreograph? You choreograph a piece where the same piece is played or danced by both women and men. How does it change? How do the emotions change? How do the movements change? How do the expressions and the theme, how is it portrayed differently?
Well, I do feel like, and this is another thing we can relate to sort of how Sarabi Ensemble does exude their dance. And sometimes they will take perhaps the same song or the same movement, but they will do it in their own individual style. Maybe our flamenco dancer, Leticia, will do a move in more of a flamenco style. And Kinari Vora, our classical Indian dancer, she also does a range of things, also mixing modern, and she'll take the same movement and do it maybe in more of the style that she is used to preparing. So when we talk about the male versus the female, in you are asking about Sharki or Dabka?
Yeah, yeah.
Which one would
The,
you,
the latter, yeah. Hmm.
in the Dabka?
Yeah.
Yes. So when we are doing and just as we talked about, we have the folk dance where everybody joins hands and does it at weddings and parties. And then we have a more complicated dance that can happen, which is still dabka in a troupe setting. And the troops are,
Mhm.
professional, and they do it, as professionals, and they have choreographies. And as you were saying, so I do feel like dabka is a very, very, it can be done, and it is done very in a much there can be a very big masculinity in it, because it is such a powerful dance to
Mhm.
stomp the feet, right? When
Mhm.
the base of the dance is stomping your feet, right? And there
Right.
are different countries do moves in a different way. I would say
Mhm.
that sometimes you can recognize Palestinian dabka versus a Lebanese style, and you
Mhm.
just the way certain countries do certain moves. So when it comes to the way females might express debke versus the males, I think in general, again, this is going like there are entire female Dubke troops that has been, but and a Dubke troop a lot of times will be mixed nowadays with men
Mhm.
and women. There are more women in the professional troops, and that's really, really nice to see. A lot of times they're doing the same movement, but you will see that perhaps if the two leaders of the circle are men, they play a certain role. The leader of the circle and the second one behind them, often they will be the ones who do kind of solos. When the instrumental section breaks out in the music, you will see the first and the second in the line, kind of making a display of their strength or the more gymnastic movements. And oftentimes you will have men at the lead of those lines because they have the natural strength to be, with the lunging and the kicking and the jumping. They will often sort of, I feel like that is their time to bring out their natural strength, right? And when females do it, females are up in there nowadays. I feel like more and more females are at the lead of the line, and you see this on Instagram and videos and things. And it's really inspiring to see the women go up and make it their own as well. Yes. And sometimes, maybe if they're not displaying the outer strength that maybe men are naturally given with their physique, the women can also exude that same strength, but from within, the way they're expressing the moves. Yeah, that's what I would say about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Are there, apart from the aesthetics, which is visually very appealing, and the music, which is also very catchy and appealing, is there also something that the audience needs to know prior to appreciating regional dances of it? For instance, in Indian dances, you have symbols like the mudras, where it's a learning, and there's a training given for representation, which mudra represents what. So for folk dances and dances which you do, does the audience in India need to know something prior to appreciating your dance?
Well, I think that the debke, which you will again see in the concert, and the other dancers will join me on this, especially now, with what is happening in places in the Middle East where this dance comes from, such as Palestine and Lebanon. These are two countries where debka is very, very prevalent. I think it's important to share this now, to preserve, promote, and protect these cultures that are possibly, just to make sure that they don't go away, even in the face of any political strife, right? And as you were asking, like, are there hand gestures? Are there things that we can look out for to appreciate debka even more so? It's interesting because what I'm wearing right now, which is a kufiyya, is something that you will see people wearing maybe as a scarf or on their head when they're doing this dance. Some troops you will see. And this kufiyya is a very meaningful garment. It is not just a certain pattern, but the pattern means something. And I'll show you that right now. We have three, I hope you can see.
Yes.
We have three different sort of, let me see, make sure in the camera you can see. Okay, and there we go. On the top, you see here, it looks sort of like a chain link fence. I'll show you, try to get it. There we go. This part of the material, this pattern, it looks sort of like a fence, but really also what it is supposed to symbolize is the nets of the fishermen.
Oh, okay.
As you know, a lot of the countries on the Mediterranean Sea, we're close to the water, things like that. And so a lot of the trades are to be a fisherman. And so this is supposed to symbolize the nets of the fishermen. Also in this garment, which I will also again say kufiyya, the name is kufiyya, you will see a straight line. Let me see if I can show that to the camera a little better and not get it cut off. Can you see that? The straight line?
Yes, the black one.
Yes, the black straight line there. And that is also symbolic again of the way of life of the people, symbolizing the trade routes that people traveled on when they have, if say you're a merchant or something and you are taking your product to a certain part of the country or along your route where you might exchange and do the commerce that way. This is symbolizing that this straight line is symbolizing the trade route. And you might have noticed the third part of this kufiyya
Mm.
Let me see if I can show you very nicely.
Mhm.
See, I'm
Yeah.
backwards on my right hand versus my left. There we go. You see this?
Yeah.
Let me see.
Yeah.
This is not the best representation here. Let me see. Mm, sorry, this is my bad camera. Please forgive me.
No problem. Yeah.
Trying to, there we go.
Yeah.
Do you see here? This third pattern, it looks a
Mm.
little bit like the wings of a bird.
Mm.
However, this symbolizes the olive, the leaves on an olive tree. Or some would say, I've also read, it can symbolize
Mm.
the wheat, the wheat. So again,
Okay.
it very much is a symbol of the way of life of the people. We are
Mhm.
representing the sea, we are representing the trade routes, we are representing the crops such as olives and wheats that the land is very fertile for. And so this, you will see this garment come up when you're watching videos of Debke dance. And it is not just any garment, but it is a symbol of Arab identity, of solidarity with the Middle East, the Arab cultures of the Middle East. And it depends, oftentimes it will be a different color depending on what region the person is wearing it and where they're from.
That's so beautiful because I was just going to ask you if there's, a lot of folk dances are connected to local rituals and the natural landscape and the local traditions. So this is a very beautiful representation of that connect.
Yes, and there, I have read two different theories of where the dance dubka comes from, and it's good that you brought up the folk life and the tradition. um, Two things people say: one, that it was a harvest dance originally, that people say that where they would stomp the earth to awaken the earth to give good crops and give good fertility to the land. But a lot of times people also say another way, and you can really, really see that this could well be the case, when people were renewing the mud on the roofs. So what would happen is the roof of the house, of course, throughout the year, it would be weathered and the mud would start to crack, and we have to then repair the roof by putting more new, fresh mud and twigs on the roof, and having it dry in the sun to make a fresh layer for the roof. So what they say is that all the neighbors would come. The neighbors would come to help make the new roof, and they would all stamp the roof, the mud down into the roof to compact it, and they would gather on top of the roof to stamp the mud together, as again, and then that folk life, people helping people. And as they would stamp and compact the roof,
Wow.
it turned into a rhythm, and thus Dabke was born. And so people often offer that theory as well. But either of those is very, very much in tandem with the traditions and cycles of life of the people.
How lovely. How did you get interested in dance and also in music and this arts?
I have been a musician since I was 6 years old. My mother
Mm.
was a music teacher.
Okay.
And so I started music lessons very, very early. So I played the saxophone since I was 8, and I played the kind of the wooden flute from 6 to 8 because I was too little. And so I started music lessons very, very early. But and I went to college. I went to university for music as well. But my Arabic music education really didn't start until I moved into Chicago and after I started belly dancing. So I didn't start the Rat Sharki until I moved to Chicago, which was around 2004, 2005. And I got very serious about the Rat Sharki right away. And that opened a door to me for my own heritage, to learn the ways of my own heritage, to start to study the language more seriously, to start to study the music of the Arab world more seriously, which is a lot like the classical Indian music. It has its own theoretical system, very different than the West. Different notes in indeed than the West in some ways. We have the microtones, and so actually a lot of my study of Arabic
Mm.
music, which I have been very, I would say, seriously studying for about 10 years now, at least 10 years, has been with Ronnie Mali, who is a member of Sarabi Ensemble. And you will see him playing the oud in our performances, which is like the Arab version of the guitar, you will see.
Yeah.
And Ronnie has been my primary teacher of Arabic
Mm.
music, among others, for about quite a while now.
Mhm.
And so I would say that the Sharki, the belly dance, opened my eyes to the
Mm.
more of the music and the language and the connection to my own heritage
Yeah,
through the
that's
yeah,
wonderful.
yeah.
Yes, we also see Phaedra, that music, arts, and dance have been relegated to concert halls and to performances and to stages. So, what connection does it have to everyday life and to, especially in big cities like Chicago or even in Indian cities, where you just go for an evening, appreciate, enjoy the dance, and forget it. But on a day-to-day basis, in terms of creativity and what it does to you as a person, how
Mhm.
important it is to bring these art forms into our daily life.
I think that is a fantastic question and something that, as a teacher of this dance, I've been teaching this dance for 16 years now. And more and more, I teach all over the United States. And I see the effect that this dance can have. And likewise, it can be any dance. It can be Sharki or Dabka or whatever someone chooses to pursue. But in the course of my teaching, I have had students who told me that this dance affects them in their daily lives. As you were saying, I remember one particular student of mine. She said, before your class, I could not look myself in the mirror. I
Mm.
never had mirrors in my house. I didn't want to look at myself. And I think that because of the way the dance functions, you get to really know yourself and you appreciate yourself as an individual and all the uniqueness that lies within you, hopefully. And for her,
Mm.
that made a huge difference in her self acceptance.
Mm.
And she
That's
said,
so beautiful.
it was a beautiful, I will never forget her saying that because
Mm.
it was really like it drove home to me the other effects that this dance can have. The mental, the positivity you can get mentally, the physical confidence that it can, in your grace, in your self-acceptance, things can change, and also accomplishing a goal. And again, this is from a teaching perspective,
Mm.
but I see my students as they have a dance project, and then we have the final performance, and they had to make it performance ready, make it practice it until it's performance ready, and then the result that they get and they feel great about themselves with this
Yeah.
final product. Again, it's a real self-esteem booster sometimes.
Mm. Absolutely. Thank you so much. It was so lovely talking to you about such varied things we've touched upon, I think, in this brief time. And I'm sure audiences in Bangalore and rest of India will really look out for your dance, especially.
I hope
So,
so. I hope so. I'm very excited to be in Mysore and Bangalore and just I'll be seeing it with fresh eyes for the first time. And I cannot wait to even experience part of the Indian culture, which is so complex and so full of history and so much depth. I know I would never be able to fully comprehend it, but just to witness it, I'm very excited.
thank you so much, Phaedra. Looking forward to meeting you, and thank you for your time.
You as
Namaste.
well. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you. Take care.
Good
Bye
night.
bye.